much for being here. We are excited to see an audience. Before COVID, so it's super exciting. And we'll have time for public comment in a moment. But first, we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Yes. Division 1.
Here.
Division 2.
Here.
Division 3.
Here.
Division 4.
Here.
Division 5.
Here.
Okay, so we are going to now have public comment for items not on the agenda. And we're going to start, though, with a person who would like to comment on a closed item session at the end of our meeting. She's here now, so we'll start with her. From a general perspective, we allow up to 3 minutes for you to make your comments. To keep us on track, I'm going to have my iPhone timer on. I'm not going to, cut you off at the knees, but we'll ask that you wrap up your comments once you hear the buzzer beeping. And the other thing I want to acknowledge is that we as a board cannot respond to public comments, so we're not ignoring your comments. We appreciate you being here, but we're not allowed by protocol to respond. The general manager will respond if she feels it's appropriate. So with that, we'll invite you to come to the podium. Oh, and please do state your name at the beginning of your comments.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Robin Ray, and I live on Wet Hill Road in Nevada City. And I'm here to talk about January 14th, where we had an overflow of the ditch above us, which came down our hillside and washed out the driveway and took down part of our retaining wall. This is not an isolated incident. I've lived on Wet Hill since 1990, and it has happened any number of times over the years. I appreciate your water emergency note on, I'm an analog girl. I rarely use email. I don't know if my pictures arrived, but I'm here to speak about this issue that has been ongoing over the years. And it makes sense to receive calls, emergency calls, so that you know what's going on, whether there's a broken pipe or this or that. Unfortunately, over the years, I have called when the water comes down with a powerful force on the hillside and down the way, but I've been told, well, we're not running water. So it's never really gotten the attention it needs, which is why I'm very glad to be here to bring it to attention. On the 14th, I looked out the window. I've been keeping an eye on the driveway because of all the rain. And I saw brown churning water going down the middle of the driveway, and just filled with an adrenaline. I went down to the sand on 49 nearby. My housemate did a much more useful thing in that he called NID, and about 3 or 4 times, he followed the flow of the water up to the ditch and stood there at the ditch, seeing where it was overflowing, and the grate, which understandably was clogged with all the winds and the rains that had come before. And so he was able to just keep pursuing until someone did come by, and I'm just grateful that the matter is here in this room. I really am very appreciative of that. I don't know if the pictures I sent yesterday to each of your emails arrived, but one of them, another housemate, went outside, and she's of the younger generation where she's always using the phone. I never think to use the phone, the camera. And so there is a pretty impactful photo of the waters coming down and part of the retaining wall coming down with it. So over the years, it's put us in a position of Three things. Three things. Financial burden, and it's put us in a place of liability, the gravel, all the way down Wet Hill, all the way down Cement Hill to the Hirschman Farm parking lot. All that force, took it down that far, and it's been quite stressful. So, thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Go, we'll wait, we'll let you do that, we've got a group.
Okay, I'll just do this quick. My name is Shirley Frerick. I'm part of the Nevada County Climate Action Now, Waste Not. I've been working for, 3 or 4 years on plastic reduction and plastic pollution, and methane release and that kind of thing. And I know you have a lot of pressing problems right now, but I have a long-term problem that I want to bring to your attention. It's called microplastics. So I have a letter for you, which shows you a report from a company I had test our NID water out of the faucet, and we have microplastics. Some of them are understandable, like PVC, and but if you'll be able to understand it probably more than me. So I have this report from Eurofins to show that we do have microplastics in our water. And I talked with Scott Coughlin, who's the head of the water board, California Water Board, and he had told me, because he's been very interested in microplastics for a very long time, because it's a problem. I mean, I also attached some information on research about how it's beginning to affect humans, it's endocrine system, problems, and it's in fetuses, and it's in people's blood veins, and, it's becoming a very serious research problem. So anyway, so I've attached his comments of how he looked at the Eurofins report and what he has to say. And he said, well, we are going to be doing microplastic water testing in the cities. It's going to be mandated in like 3 years or something like that. He said, but I'm sorry, he said, your area is kind of small. We won't get to you for a while. I said, well, okay, I'll do it myself. Thank you very much. So I did. And I think, what I'm asking for you is to pay attention, look at it, start thinking about it, and do education, because it's a thing. It's a thing. And, I know, like we can do filters on washing machines. I don't think they've mandated that yet, but I think there's a law that wants to come about putting the filter on the washing machines. But there are things people can do in their own lives. I worry about ag. I worry about our local growers, because if they put plastic all over the fields, guess what? It's in the ground, it's in the soil, it's in our food, it's in us. So I really want to, bring forward this concern. I'm older. I haven't been ingesting plastic all my life, but our kids and grandkids have, and they will. And it's going to build these are toxic chemicals in plastic. It's going to build in their bodies, and I worry about that. So, to pay attention and let me know what you can do. As I say, I work with Waste Not, and we work with Waste Management in the county, and trying to figure out how we can do that. How we can reduce particularly single-use plastics, and certainly anything that becomes a microplastic. Everything becomes a microplastic. In fact, I was in Nevada City, and on a Sunday morning, and this guy was going around picking up cigarette butts. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Cigarette butts. The filters are all made of microplastics, microfibers." I went like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." And then they run over them with the cars and munch on them with their feet, and it goes into our water supply. And I'm like, "Wow, really?" Okay. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
President Hall?
Yes.
May we, you are leaving a copy. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name's Christy Hubbard. I live in NID Division 2, and I'm representing the Wells Coalition, a group of citizens in the vicinity of the Idaho-Maryland mine, determined to protect our only source of water, our wells. First, we want to sincerely thank NID for taking bold action with its comments on the draft EIR of the mine. Because of your action, the final EIR references the issues that you've identified. And yet, seeing the responses, we believe the county has failed NID, and we believe they've failed us too. Huge risks still aren't being addressed. We were alarmed to discover how many of NID's comments were simply dismissed out of hand and disappointed time and time again that it didn't fully address your requests. For example, NID asked for a $14 million bond. The county dismissed it, insisting NID needs nothing. At the same time, the area of potential impact was expanded to 378 parcels within the quote-unquote 1-foot drawdown isoplex, suggesting that even more money is needed. You asked for a domestic well monitoring program, including collection of baseline data. The final EIR gave you a program with no teeth and a limited time frame that won't give you the data you need. It's included as a condition of approval, but it is not a mitigation. NID also asked for a commitment to supply water to wells beyond the 30 parcels proposed for the NID connections. The final EIR gives lip service to fixing wells beyond the 30, but that's only if RISE identifies an impact, and then providing potable water only if RISE thinks it's necessary. Think water trucks. The profound gap is that there are no plans for fixing permanent well damage with a connection to NID. No water supply assessment for expanded parcels, no requirements to obtain and pay for permits or easements, and in a complete misunderstanding of the complexity and timeframes involved in connecting to NID services, they characterized the Loma Rica District water line extension as an example of a project that took just 3 months. In short, they are not addressing NID's very valid concerns. We're here today to ask you to review the county's response to NID's comments in the final EIR and prepare new comments about things that aren't acceptable to you. Consider creating your own recommendations for conditions of approval to make sure NID's needs are met, because the final EIR will dictate water supply impacts for 80 years. To help, other Wells Coalition members will share more detailed perspectives next. The county has failed us. Today, we need your help. The prospect of having no plan for well failures elicits visions of community frustration that none of us even want to ponder. If it isn't fixed, you'll be seeing a lot more of us here in your future meetings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christine.
Good morning. My name is Gary Perazzi, and I live in NID Division 2, and I'm also a member of the Wells Coalition. In your written comment to the county regarding the Idaho Maryland Mine Project DEIR, you asked that a $14 million bond be posted to guarantee NID infrastructure and service for 3 neighborhoods that could be impacted by the dewatering of the mine. The FEIR dismissed your request by stating, quote, "A bond for construction of water supply infrastructure in this area is not necessary because no significant impacts to domestic water wells are predicted," end quote. This is speculation not supported by facts, and it could affect the water supply of hundreds of your constituents. In draft EIR comments, the Water Board demanded more tests. Hydrology experts explain why models in fractured rock can't deliver 100% certainty. And CEQA experts cried foul at the use of sparse patches of data from 15 years ago instead of building a current baseline to assess potential impacts. Over 1 million gallons of water a day from an area with hundreds of wells is unprecedented. Claiming no risk defies both science and common sense. Other than the 30 wells connections along East Bennett, there is no mitigation plan in the FEIR for connecting impacted wells to NID water service. That means no additional wells identified as needing mitigation, no water supply assessment, no infrastructure design plans, no permitting, acquiring easements or rights of way, no timetable, but most importantly, no financial assurances for design, construction, and bringing service to impacted well owners. What kind of fantasy land is the county living in where they don't acknowledge any possibility of wells going dry or even require the applicant to post a bond as assurance and protection for well owners? This is reckless behavior. The county is leaving it to the applicant, who knows nothing about water supply or infrastructure, to dictate what is needed. You are the sole surface water supplier and expert water agency, and still the county has dismissed your serious concerns. The FEIR is flawed and risks significant impacts and liability to both well owners and NID. Also consider the FEIR's domestic well monitoring program expands the area of potential impact beyond the 3 neighborhoods that NID requested financial security for. Will $14 million be enough to also cover this expanded area? NID needs to let the county know that they don't approve of this document as is, and that a bond of sufficient amount must be included in the FEIR as a condition of approval for the project. Without it, NID will be left holding the bag when constituents come begging for water. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Good morning. Hi there. My name's Callum Grant. I'm from Division 5. I'm here with the Wells Coalition. Along with Wells Coalition member Tony Loria, who couldn't be here today, my comment is about the final EIR's response to NID's request for more extensive well monitoring and a guarantee of potable water for impacted wells. The domestic well monitoring program attached to the final EIR is little more than a Band-Aid. It doesn't fully address NID's requests and is not positioned as a mitigation. Its exhaustingly long list of shortcomings put both the NID and well owners at serious risk. There's no bond plan for connecting to NID, which should be a showstopper all by itself. The final EIR's most concrete promise is that potable water will be provided outside the East Bennett Road area if water supply is disrupted, but it fails to provide any concrete timeline commitments. Even more concerning, all the decisions about fixing wells or replacing water are left solely up to Rise Gold, who would take action only if a completely separate set of 15 monitoring wells in the official groundwater monitoring program flags an impact. Now, the threshold for triggering that impact would be a 10% drawdown. Hydrology experts call the use of that threshold arbitrary, and for homeowners with marginal wells, much smaller drawdowns could make their wells useless long before they're getting a call from Rise Gold. The list of issues goes on. The program won't collect the well performance data that NID needs. Monitoring is only scheduled for 12 months, which doesn't account for seasonal variations from year to year. Experts say a minimum of 3 years is needed to collect valid data. The program will also expire after 5 years after dewatering, but that provides no protection for accidents that could occur in future years as the mine operation expands. The final EIR selection of 378 properties defines an area of potential impact. It includes the Woodrose and Beaver Drive neighborhoods, as NID requested, but only some of the homes along Greenhorn Road in the mineral rights area. At the same time, it excludes properties in neighborhoods served by NID, denying both NID and those well owners the predictive benefits that are offered to others. You, the NID board, are in the best position to make this madness stop. We're asking for your help. Please submit comments on the final EIR. 1, insist on bond and NID connection plans. 2, demand 3 years of baseline data collection, not 1. 3, insist the county create a separate oversight commission to resolve issues and manage timelines between the mine, homeowners, the county, and NID. 4, expand domestic well monitoring to all properties in the potentially impacted area. And 5, demand domestic well monitoring for the life of the project and for 5 years beyond. You can help now to ensure that none of us and NID are not left holding the bag. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is John Vaughn. I live in NID Division 2. I'm a member of the Wells Coalition. As you've heard, the FEIR dismisses NID's request for a $14 million bond to cover the estimated cost of infrastructure in the Greenhorn, Woodrose, and Beaver areas. The FEIR speculates there will be no significant impacts in those areas. Yet the response states these neighborhoods are now in the area of potential impact and has identified 378 wells in this area. With the inclusion of these neighborhoods, the NID requirement for a $14 million bond is critical, especially given the FEIR dismisses the need for a bond and there is no plan to cover costs for NID expansion to these areas. In reality, a catastrophic water event would require a bond much greater than this. Additionally, I'm very concerned the proposed groundwater monitoring plan, or GMP, is inadequate to protect NID and the community that relies on the wells within the area of impact. Page 2-336 states the GMP would provide early warning for potential well impacts and would allow the mine operator to replace water prior to those impacts. The FEIR states, quote, the applicant would provide replacement water prior to impacts or to slow or halt dewatering to prevent any impact prior to water supply being connected, end quote. The entire quote is vague, but we believe it refers to NID services, and it even cites an example that implies NID services could be provided quickly and easily. This is a flawed analysis at best. It assumes that the impacts of dewatering on the fractured bedrock aquifer would show up in monitoring wells in time to avoid any subsequent impacts to wells. However, it fails to acknowledge the probable delay in detection of well impacts that are likely to result from dewatering. Lastly, the FEIR provides no procedure, no funding guarantees, and no independent oversight of the means by which the replacement water could be provided in a timely fashion. The GMP does not provide a mechanism by which we can concretely say whether a well has been impacted by dewatering. Without such information, there is no way to hold the mine accountable for lost domestic wells and the cost of NID services. We strongly urge you to comment on the final EIR, explaining the reasons why dismissing your recommendations is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could we go to Jillian, who's on Zoom?
Yeah, there is one.
Sure. Oh, perfect, thank you.
Good morning. Apologize that I couldn't be there with you in person today, but thank you for setting up Zoom. My name is Jillian Blanchard, and I'm located in Division 3. And like others, I first want to sincerely thank you for speaking the truth to the county about the likely impact that this project will have on wells and water supply. I'm a natural resources attorney. I've come to you before, and I used to work at the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission on their infrastructure. So I understand well what it is that you would have to go through to make new water connections. And honestly, the idea of having to be responsible for making somewhere between 30 to 378 new water connections would terrify me. You need to get new easements, design and build infrastructure to code, and obtain necessary approvals to make permanent connections. All of this takes time, money, and expertise, none of which is being offered by Rise Gold and the county in the final EIR. You, NID, understood this, and you asked for a $14 million bond in your comment letter, but the county denied it. You also highlighted the need for easements and infrastructure, and the county ignored your expertise and instead supplanted their own with their quick fix along Whispering Pines for the 30 wells without any review, design, or confirmation that such plans would work from you. You knew that the likely impact would reach far more than 30 wells, and that groundwater analysis is literally one of the most uncertain arts that there is. The county ignored your plans and pleas for a baseline data and more mitigation for well impacts. Instead, they created a flimsy well monitoring plan, which you heard about today, that takes place after the project starts. That's neither a baseline nor a mitigation. It's basically a plan to ask for forgiveness later with no real remedy. And unfortunately, NID will be left holding this responsibility because you, NID, are going to end up being responsible for, one, making sure that the applicant designs new construction to your specifications and has sufficient easement rights in place in advance of dewatering, because you'll ultimately have to operate and maintain the system that they built. Two, providing water to the 30 well owners and likely more, and hearing their complaints when there are connection delays when this applicant drops the ball, which he has done in many other places. You understood all of this, and you voiced your concerns in a very well-written comment letter on the draft EIR. But the county called many of your concerns speculative and just ignored them. We expect more from our elected officials, And we're asking you, as the elected experts on water supply, to hold the county accountable. Your concerns are this community's concerns, but you have a louder voice and probably even more at stake in terms of costs and liability. If we don't address these issues now, I can easily see a future where citizens will be coming to every NID meeting saying, where's my water? Where's my connection happening? What is it that I do with my property that now is useless? We urge you to submit formal comments on the final EIR, including the information that the Wells Coalition has put together in writing, and place it on the record to make sure that the county properly addresses your concerns, because none of us can afford for NID to stay silent. Thank you so much.
Really.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members?
One more.
One more.
Okay. No problem. Part of the process.
Good morning. My name is Bob Hubbard. I live in NID Division 2, and I am a member of the Wells Coalition. Now that you've heard from a few of us, I'd like to summarize the actions we hope NID will take as a result of our comments. Please don't let this seriously flawed final EIR stand. We hope you will respond with renewed demands. Price Gold must meet the conditions NID knows are needed to safeguard this community and its water supply. Consider writing your own conditions of approval to make sure your demands are exceptionally clear. To help you with that work, we prepared a document for your staff that includes two things. The first part is a summary of our key recommendations. The second is a draft of a comment letter that NID might write with our suggested replies to the county's FEIR responses. There's plenty in there for your staff to consider. To wrap things up for today, here's a quick summary of top actions we've recommended. Insist on the $14 million bond at a minimum, and consider asking for more, given the expanded area of potential impact identified in the FEIR's domestic well monitoring program. Require a comprehensive plan for connecting the NID beyond the 30 properties, taking into account a water assessment, easements, permitting, rights-of-way, timelines, and so on. Require the installation pipeline to the property lines of parcels in the potential area of impact before dewatering. Trying to do this later under crisis conditions is simply an invitation to total chaos. Endorse the need for at least 3 years of baseline data collection and ask for a recalibration of the impact area once you have that data. Expand domestic well monitoring to all properties in the potentially impacted area, including homes in NID-served neighborhoods. Support the need for domestic well monitoring continuously until 5 years beyond the cessation of mining, since expansion of mining potentially expands drawdown. And an especially important one, endorse the need for a separate oversight committee or commission authorized to make determinations of impact on well owners, resolve disputes, provide professional analysis and reporting of data regarding the monitoring, assure timely execution of mitigations, and administer fines or corrective notices. The county has failed NID, failed well owners, and failed everyone that relies on NID for water. The risks posed by this outrageously inadequate FEIR simply can't stand. As the expert agency on the county, your voice really is louder than ours. Please submit comments on the record to make sure the county does the right thing to protect us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Do we have any other members of the public on Zoom that would like to speak in the public comment period? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no other hands or comments, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Thank you, everybody.
second.
You want to take the vote, Chris?
Division
Oh,
1?
public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing no public, comment,
Division 1?
Yes.
Division 2?
Yes.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 5?
Yes.
Division 3?
Aye. Okay, general orders. And the amendment to the fiscal year 2023 CIP budget.
I'm going to handle that one, President Hall. Thank you so much. The item before the board is request for an amendment to the 2023 capital budget. The amendment reflects rollover funding that is required for projects that are crossing fiscal years. When we go through the budget development process, we start very early on in the year, and as such, staff makes projections on how much of a multi-year capital project will be completed prior to the end of the fiscal year, which then either indicates we require no more funding for the following fiscal year, or we will require continued funding into the fiscal year. Sometimes those projections are not exactly spot on, and so it is very common to require consideration of this rollover funding for these crossover projects. This happens every year. In previous years, these were not always brought before the board for consideration, but this is one of our initiatives to have our finances be a little bit more transparent for the board as well as for the public. So the item before the board today is to increase Fund 15 water capital expenditures by $969,000 and a little bit of change for 3 projects. Those 3 projects are the Squirrel Creek Siphon Project, the Hemp Hill Diversion Project, as well as the Alta Tank Sierra Replacement Project. And with that, and just as a note, there is no modification to the beginning fund balance projection for 2023, as this work was originally was contemplated to be completed in 2022, so it's not going to modify the fund balance projection. With that, I can answer any questions.
Yeah, it is pretty
It
straightforward.
is. With budgetary items, I do like to put them on general orders, even when they're straightforward, just to give everybody an opportunity to kind of highlight them and talk about them if we need to.
So there's no alter, we're not gonna alter any of our reserve funds at all. And so Silicon Valley Bank put everything out 20, 30 years. And they had to pull money in when they needed funds to repay their depositors. The way we're set up, it looks like we don't have that problem at all. We have a lot of, somewhat laddered investments, so we're not gonna run short of funds.
Correct.
Needed. Yeah.
No, we carefully monitor our investments.
Had to get that.
Well, this is probably the closest item to try to sneak that in.
Yeah, I move to approve the resolution, number 2023-16, authorizing amendment to the fiscal year 2023 CIP budget to carry forward ongoing fiscal year 2022 CIP projects, increasing Fund 15 water capital CIP $969,110 for CIP projects 2624, 7032, and 697. That long motion.
Public comment on, this amendment and motion? Seeing no public comment, we'll take a vote.
Division 1?
Yes.
Division 2?
Yes.
Division 4?
Yes.
Division 5?
Yes.
Division 3?
Aye. Okay, so workshop items, I assume Jennifer, you're gonna take the strategic plan review?
I think that Greg and I will tag team it. Greg was the driving effort behind developing the document, so a huge thank you to Greg and also to Susan for helping us with all of the formatting. This proposed draft document is accumulation of the great work that the public, the board, as well as staff did over that series of, 4 or 5 meetings?
Yeah, meetings.
Yeah, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was nice to hear everybody's concerns and visions for the future. As the board knows, the strategic plan is part of the plan for water process, but it is intended to be a standalone document. And for that reason, it is contemplated that it will be revisited on an annual basis just to reaffirm that these are still the board's desires, and that is specifically related to the strategic priorities moving forward. As you'll recall, the board went through and developed basically a mission, a vision, what are the values for NID, and then the strategic priorities. After that work was completed, staff then went back and did some more internal work with our larger executive team to develop actual goals that we felt would help facilitate meeting of your strategic priorities or facilitating or supporting them. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg. We're here just to receive feedback, and if any feedback we receive, we will incorporate as appropriate and make revisions, and then we'll be bringing this back to the board for formal consideration at a later date.
Yeah, so the document is relatively short, and we tried to do kind of a good job on gathering some historical information, and make it look nice and visually appealing. So we did our best here. So Chris, I'll just ask you to kind of, I've got this, never mind. Anything is on the table to request revisions to, adjustments of. As Jennifer said, as we move forward, we've got sort of a quick overview of an outline, kind of a board of directors vision statement here that I hope you had a chance to read. We go into a bit of the NID history for a couple pages with some nice old photographs. We then get to the state of where the board and the public and staff really connected for those 4 or 5 meetings, created the new mission, vision, sets of values, and strategic priorities beyond that. We talked about goals as groups, and then as Jennifer said, we broke into a couple different meetings with staff in, I want to say it was January and February-ish, and we met a couple different times and discussed the goals. So some of those are things that you haven't really completely seen. You've seen some of the levels, but we discussed it from a technical, operational perspective and augmented a little bit, kept many of the goals that the board and the public and the staff created during those meetings, but we made some minor revisions. We wanted to show some photographs of the public and the staff engaged in this process as we move forward, so that's what this page is. Kind of outlines the number of meetings we have. There's a couple things that we're going to have to update. There's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down. You know, there's the when it was adopted, the date. So we anticipate it'll be the very next meeting from today. This page 7, is an overview of the 5 strategic priorities that was defined and came up during those meetings. And thank you for being so forthright and making the decision on the meeting dates as we move forward. That helped that process move along. I think it was the right thing to do within the context of the plan for water process overall, so that helped define the district's priorities and movement in the next few years. So here's our strategic priorities and a little definition of what they are. That was created then.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
I really liked that process.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the most eye-opening of how we all came together on strategic priorities. It was all little pieces of paper, and everybody had their little files. I thought it was really cool. A good tool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jennifer, thank you.
Do you want questions now, or?
Yeah, we can have questions as we go.
Throwing it out here. So to line up with grant funding and everything, should we change watershed stewardship to watershed stewardship and resiliency?
Sure.
Because that as
It's
well.
up to you.
I mean, it's also our mission.
In there somewhere, the resiliency, because I thought I read that in there somewhere.
It references advancement.
Where's the resilient?
But resiliency seems to be the word, and it makes sense.
I think so.
Kind of reference resiliency somewhere, but not in the context of strategic priority when it's looked at. You know, that word isn't in if you just put it in a short.
We're trying to keep everything short.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to.
Like long-term infrastructure and water supply reliability.
Watershed stewardship and resiliency.
That's that's why we're
I think
here.
that's fine.
Oh, is the board all,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
easy.
Kind of goes together.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this particular section, these high-level strategic priorities, definition therein? Okay. So as we dig into each one of them, long-term infrastructure and water supply reliability, this had 3 particular goals associated with it. And again, I think what came out of those meetings was like 6 other goals. Part of what we tried to do as staff is really make the strategic goal, these goals, attainable, right? I mean, we have so many different activities we're doing. We really consciously tried to say, okay, what is the highest level priority of goal and keep it attainable during these next 3 to 5 years so that we're not overstretching. We're stretching, but we're not overstretching so much that we're just gonna, get 50% of the way there in 5 years from now. So that was kind of our staff mental focus as we went into this. Developed 3 different goals out of this, many of which came out of those meetings. We just augmented and tried to break it up a little easier and created objectives that speak to each of those goals. So these are sort of we didn't call them tasks because there was no checkbox on some of these. They were a little squishy. So they're sort of the objectives that we're hoping to gather. I don't necessarily think I need to go into each one of these.
I do have a question or maybe a comment.
Yeah.
This
is a great time.
Okay, great. So on goal 1, this is regarding the treated water plan. One thing that is missing, because we talk about update the treated water master plan by the end of 2025. But what we don't have is any statement of creating a plan, and I wrote, include a prioritized plan to expand the treated water infrastructure to unserved areas, especially those with wells. Now, it's too wordy, but
A good thought.
But the thought is, we need to also have a plan of how we are going to expand that treated water infrastructure, or not. I mean, are we saying we're not going to ever expand it, or are we going to say it's going to be part of our integrated plan for our treated water master plan? So that's something I'd like to see included in some way.
So typically, treated water expansions or infrastructure expansions are driven by land use or folks that are going to be developing or folks that have come in and requested. Given our particular situation with not being a land use agency, we don't guide development. We currently have no plans for expansion. And so unless we came into most expansions, almost 100% of them, are typically paid for by the people requesting the expansion. And when you do expansion plans, you set up a fee schedule to pay for that future expansion, which we do not have. So we're just in a little bit of a difficult situation. I don't foresee a situation at this point where we would be making plans for expansions.
Now, to counter that, though, I would say that we do have areas such like, I'm sure they're everywhere, but in my division out in North Bloomfield, Greenhorn, and some of these areas where we've got lines that go to a certain spot and then stop. And in some of these areas, the wells are very, very questionable, and it seems like it would be good for us to at least have some forward-looking idea about, well, what would we do, or what is the higher priority, or
I wouldn't be comfortable saying, we have no plans to expand the system. That doesn't feel right to me.
Maybe I'll make a quick comment
Yeah.
on that, in that this particular strategic priority, at least how I think we thought about it, and Doug, come on up, is infrastructure investment. We've got systems that are 50 and 60 years old. We're running into this backlog of our existing infrastructure that needs investment. Our existing infrastructure needs a plan for investment and long-term capital improvement. This particular strategic priority, at least I think from the perspective of staff, didn't, the intent wasn't for the discussion around the expansion. This is more of take care of what we got and make sure that it's reliable for the next 60 and 100 years.
So with that, understand, part of the master plan is we do look at areas that we could serve that currently aren't being served, and how we would do that, right? That's part of how we've done the master plans in the past. Not that we're specifically looking to extend, but that we identify areas and how we would serve those as part of the master plan.
That's not typically what an agency such as ours would do, and that is also why we ended up with a district-funded water line extension.
That's right.
So I think that that's more of a policy decision. I have some significant concerns. We are not able to afford what we currently have.
Understood. I mean, it's sort of like, I get that we have, and I'm in favor 100% of doing every dollar we can spend to upgrade and beef up our existing infrastructure, right? Stay ahead of it, right. At the same time, there will be continuing needs for treated water in areas where we've got lines that go here, and then somebody over here doesn't have it, it's a couple parcels away or whatever. And I know that the board has not wanted to pursue the DFW-LE program. So, Doug, if you're telling us that, yes, you'll be looking at that as part of the treated water master plan.
No, that's not what Doug was saying. Yes. Well, I think what Doug was indicating was that was past practice. That's not my recommendation, and we would have to have a further policy discussion about it. We can't currently afford what we are even doing now.
I know, I get it.
I would like to say that I fully support the management approach that you are recommending. I think that if a group of property owners ended up in a situation where they did not have adequate water from their wells, and if our service line approaches that area, then that's an issue that comes up at that time, that they have to, that community has to work together to get, with the district, we don't fund, but what community funding, what government funding, what private funding, but I agree, you don't create a plan around, you don't know. The lines exist where they exist, and I think the focus is absolutely squarely on the existing systems that we have. So I just support the management approach you're talking about. Yes.
So, I agree with Jennifer on this and Doug, that we have to protect the home base of what we're doing now and keep it up to date, keep ahead of it. I also didn't bring up the backbone extension program. But it's a case where previous boards saw the need also of what Ricky is talking about. Well, we all know that our neighbors are telling us wells are diminishing, groundwater is not reliable. So, yeah, it's not normal for an irrigation district to just extend into an area without some kind of subdivision to pay for it. But NID isn't normal, and Nevada County.
In any possible way.
And Nevada County isn't normal. So,
yes.
I think the discussion to frame something, not getting into the weeds, not to spend a lot of time on it, but to frame out something, and maybe it looks like the backbone extension program, maybe it doesn't.
I just think there's a particular nuance associated with the backbone extension that is a little bit different than what we're talking about with treated water expansion. There are going to be situations where having a looped water system or having a secondary connection or being able to do consolidation will require the construction of new infrastructure. That is not simply a treated water expansion. Right, so those would be considered in master planning efforts. Simply treated water expansion to areas that are currently not served and there is no dual purpose as far as consolidation or secondary connections, those would likely not be planned for.
Gotcha. Works for me.
I have some other
Yeah, go ahead.
comments in this general area. One question I have is for each of the goals, we don't have what the time frame for that, like the treated water master plan is. So,
End of 2023.
By end of fiscal year.
no, you have when it's the goal, how long is the plan cover?
Oh.
But typically, master plans cover a 5-year period and then they're updated. You utilize master plan for setting fee schedules for either capacity fees and or for rate setting. And so you do kind of readdress those every 5 years.
Isn't that in the water code, that we have to do those plans for 5 years?
No, those are the urban water
The
management
urban, oh, that's right.
plan and the ag water management plan.
Got it.
You're just saying that it says develop a blank treated water master plan? Are you saying that it?
Well, or you could just say, develop a 5-year treated water master plan. I just want to know the time duration, and, I mean, maybe just knowing it. I didn't know what the duration was.
This is the treated water master plan will take a further look out over 5, 10, 15, 25 years when you really kind of, the 5-year reference is into updating the plan. So the master plan will be a planning document where we'll take a longer term outlook on it.
Okay.
And then we'll identify infrastructure improvements that are required consistent with the plan. Those will then roll into the plan, the projects contemplated in the fee schedules or in the water rate setting process. But you then need to go back and update the plans on a frequent basis.
Sure. Can we just note that somewhere, what's the duration of the plan?
Like the planning horizon for the plan? Yeah, we can do that.
In the goal number 2, the third bullet, it says develop metric analysis for improvement prioritization. And yeah, I just didn't know improvement of what? Improvement of the raw water system?
What does that mean?
What bullet was it?
I'm not clear what that means.
Bullet
Bullet 3.
That's a point.
Metric analysis.
That is essentially identifying prioritization of actual canal modifications and where those would go. So, you know, what, for example, a metric could be minor inches of water delivered down a specific canal. So if we're going through modernization, we probably want to get more bang for our buck and start being able to have more accurate data and control over the canals that serve more water than a small canal that serves less water.
When we created our capital improvement plan, we had a series of metrics, and that was identified to bring the prioritization of which CIP project, and so then there was a list based on that. That's kind of that's what this is. It's just a metric analysis to help staff prioritize different canal improvement projects.
Otherwise, you can get a hodgepodge of projects that aren't necessarily moving the needle on what we're wanting to do, which is water efficiency, controlling operational efficiency. So one metric may be, you know, minor inches delivered. It could be an area where we're having issues with controlling tailwater. It could be those types of things that will help us then analyze, okay, we're going to focus on modernizing this particular canal because we think we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck.
Okay.
That ties into the automated
Mm-hmm.
sensors and everything,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in the second bullet, is identify raw water measurement and monitoring tools and locations throughout the canal system. And many of the things you say by end of 2024, end of 2023, and so I wondered when we were going to, what's the timing for that one? Since that's such an important part of getting increased
We're
management.
buying 2 units a year, right? 100,000?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be by the end of 2024, and that brings up a valid point that the, bullet 3, I'm gonna recommend we modify that to be the end of 2024 as well. We're almost done with 2023.
Yep.
And just a side note, as Greg and I have discussed many of these items, we do feel that our plates are a little bit full, so we might be doing some additional shifting before we bring it back. But on that same note, that's how goals and objectives work. You know, if they're not obtained or we determine the goal doesn't really make sense as we're going through implementation, we'll just report back on that and then propose a modification for the next year.
On goal number 3, I just wondered about the timelines for those. If we were to get the South Yuba Canal earlier, would we still, let's say we got the South Yuba Canal in 6 weeks, would we still have a repair and replacement plan by the end of 2024? So I wondered about just having a timeline that was within, let's say, 12 months of receiving South Yuba Canal, as opposed to at the end of 2024.
So the initial report was completed, that was looked at. The repair and replacement plan is going to be very specific. I don't really think that it is, 2024 might be difficult. It is also somewhat weather dependent. It can't be accessed to all times of the year. There's a lot of moving pieces with it. I think 2024 might be difficult.
And you're saying you're already working on that?
Well, there was the initial analysis that was completed, and I had thought they were doing another analysis, but Kian, Doug, were they doing another?
Do you want to be on the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the status of the more in-depth report that, who was it, GRE was completing?
I do have the final report.
Okay, so we'll take a look at it, and it might be further along. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So we'll report back on that. And we can maybe possibly propose a modification to this.
You like that?
I do. I love it.
I mean, repair is, something goes wrong, you have to repair it. Replacement is a whole different.
Well, the risk mitigation on that one to me is top priority.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on this priority? Okay. So the second one is employee engagement. About 3 goals built into this. The title of this one went back and forth. I think we had an original title that was a little ambiguous, and it was really hard for staff to gather what it actually meant, to be honest with you. I can't recall what the original one that came out of the board meeting was, but we've modified it, and as staff, we kind of came up with these 3 different goals. So any questions on this? Yeah.
I love what you're doing now with Susan on those, when we talked about that. The employee taking photographs of someone working, a crew working right in the field. It's not these guys are posting.
Not a can shot somewhere from Iowa.
So increased
Doesn't work.
employee engagement and recognition, I think it goes, taking those photographs on different projects talks to those 2 things, engagement and recognition. And I think, and looking at the numbers of likes on social media, the public loves them.
Good.
Those social media things that, I don't know who's, I know you're in charge of the program, and who actually is putting it together, I think they're so excellent.
Good.
I mean, they're beyond anything that NID has done before.
Great news. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they're really terrific.
Pass that on.
Yeah.
They really are.
And I'm really glad to see this whole category as part of the strategic priority. And I appreciate the piece on the climate survey to do it annually. I think that's really great. I think it'll make a real.
There's a country western things to it too. I like it, I love it, I want more of it. More photographs, more
Well, we have a VIP in the room.
Yeah, we do. I was gonna say that too.
Photograph Anyway.
We have a VIP.
Casey's taken, she's here today. Thank you for being here. Any other?
Turnover rate right now is?
Oh, turnover rate?
Yeah.
It's reduced some. I don't know. Do you know what the attrition rate is right now, Naomi?
Close to
9%?
Oh, that's very good.
We went through a period about 18 months ago of significant resignations. And it's notable that some of them are now coming back, which is typical when you,
Well-trained.
well, you also see this with fluctuations in the economy. When the economy gets shaky, people feel more secure with a public agency versus a private company. And then we also had a number of retirements at the end of 2022, which was also related to, a market increase that they had gotten. So there was already planned retirements. They were just kind of waiting for the last final year, but it's calmed down a little bit now.
Nice.
So we'll take it to the next page.
This is when we're gonna add watershed stewardship and resilience too.
And resiliency, yep. Any questions, with these for varying objectives? Or goals, I should say. No? Come on, there's something.
It's really nice to see it come to fruition, though.
Yeah, it is. It's great to see all those pieces of paper and all these ideas come to one spot. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I wanna see salmon in the tar ditch.
No.
Possible,
Still gotta
isn't it?
have to see those salmon.
That's right.
Okay, then we'll move from this one to the next, financial sustainability. Questions here?
So we have under goal number 1, by the end of this fiscal year, we'll present a fee-based recovery plan for recreation. And then we don't adopt it, it would appear, until the fourth quarter of 2024. And I'm wondering why this time. Presenting it to the board in 2023, why wouldn't we not increase the rates in the first quarter of 2020?
We typically do, so we can, I think it's probably a typo. We typically increase them every December for the following year.
Yep.
So we can reflect that in the date.
First quarter of 2020.
Yeah, I actually think we can. Well, I also think that one is with fee recovery for recreation, what our plan is to look at a 100% revenue cost recovery fee structure, which is likely not going to be palatable for the market or for the board or the public. So we would then lay out a plan that would identify a series of increases to a specific threshold over time, which could also be reduced by any increased revenue opportunities. So I will work on those last 2 bullets so that's a little bit more clear.
Thank you.
So,
In goal number 2.
on number 1 then.
Okay, go
Recreation.
ahead.
Does that include, the cost factor include the payment to the Forest Service?
Yes,
It does.
which is offset by any revenues they receive through their when they take reservations for those campgrounds.
Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm.
We get that back in revenue?
No, they kind of do this rollover scenario where it can also decrease your next year's payment. You're kind of always in the rears.
But we're always paying.
Correct.
Always pay. Yes. Or we will take it over. I think those are our 2 choices, right? Pay or take it.
There's no obligation.
Well,
yeah, we haven't.
Agenda.
Yeah, that's an off-agenda topic.
It's going to be agendized in the future.
Yeah, we'll agendize it. On goal number 2, we complete the research by the end of 2023 for potential opportunities for non-ratepayer revenue. But we don't present it to the board until the end of 2024. So I didn't understand the timeline.
Right, research. Well, I think one is just simply a research activity, and then one is actually developing a plan for how we would implement any of the items we found were
So maybe we could say,
reasonable.
present a plan for obtaining additional revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it might take better part of 12 months to
Yeah,
put something
sure.
together.
Yeah.
Some things we are going to have to do, you know, some may have a legal component that we're gonna have to look into.
Yeah.
Maybe every year.
Yeah.
Goal number 4 says by the end of 2025, complete the Prop 218 process.
Oh, that's wrong. I don't know why 2025 is in there.
Oh, 2025?
Yeah, it's 2023.
2023. Good.
When do we begin that?
It's actually
Initiated it.
It's actually,
Yeah.
it's actually before the end of fiscal year, but
And we have a consultant on board.
Okay.
They are developing a list of information that they require. Then we will do some internal projections of expenditures over the next 5 years, and we should be getting going.
Since we're talking about the Prop 218 process, this is the same consultant that did the cost of service study last time that everybody freaked out about.
Well, they,
Had concern about.
yeah, their concern was based on the lack of applying the postage stamp method
Right.
and doing zones of benefit, which was not the consultant's idea. Most consultants will caution you from going forward with that type of methodology. It's highly controversial. And I have discussed with him that I would prefer that we go back to the
So
postage
it's a
stamp.
different methodology.
Correct.
Same consultant, but different methodology.
Yeah, and it's,
Okay, great.
sometimes people use that methodology.
And they're putting in inflation factors and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So other comments on financial?
great. Okay.
Idea.
All right, so the next page, is our last, technology and innovation investments. Questions here. This was one where we did consolidate, a handful of goals. I think we had 3, that we consolidated into one. And that was goal number 1, and that's a district-wide IT and OT master plan we're beginning to work on now. There was kind of a 3-tiered, I can't recall, but what we came up with, it just, in reviewing it, it didn't make sort of logical sense to have 3 different varying, district-wide information technology plans. So we've combined them, IT, OT master plan, and to create a much broader district-wide process. So that's why I think initially, when we came out of those meetings, there was maybe like 5 goals here. We consolidated them into 2. Questions?
I have one,
Yeah.
comment on the description. So it says NID will integrate technology and data collection to increase efficiency, knowledge, and system security to decrease cost and increase production. And so I'm wondering, production of what?
Of what?
Versus productivity.
It's productivity.
I think that's fair, yeah. Productivity. Yep.
I just think this is awesome.
Production of water molecules.
I think that, that.
Well, it's actually production of electricity
And
when you talk about the SCADA system.
moving the dial.
So he's gonna have more
Really
control.
nailed it.
Yeah.
It was a group effort.
Yeah, really nailed it. I'm very pleased.
Yeah, there was a great input from staff, and we really tried to focus on not things that were kind of generic, but things that would actually move the needle.
Yes, and not flufferoo. And really a lot of hard work. I mean, I can appreciate how much effort and why you caution about timelines in this. You gotta set a timeline, but you do have to be realistic about workload. And I'm really glad that we included the employee piece on it too.
Well, that was, we've been really clear. That was number 2 in our strategic priorities as we went through them. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
It was very high on the list.
Everybody's list.
Yeah, it's our number 1 asset.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so plan is we'll make some of these changes and we'll bring them back next board meeting for adoption.
So I'm so excited to have item 5B, the water efficiency program informational presentation.
We have public.
Oh, it would be nice if there was any public comment on the strategic plan if we.
Okay, do we have, before we move to you, we'll have any public comment on the strategic plan?
Good. Yes. Yeah. And Bob, on our workshops, it's a jump-in thing. It's not, you could just jump in anytime on workshops.
Bob Brandstrom, resident of City of Grass Valley and also a member of the City Council. My comments here today are my own views, do not reflect any city views at all. Regarding your plan, and thank you for the plan, it's really interesting to sit through and see where you're going with these things. Under Goal 4, financial stability, it was unclear to me on Prop 2.8 what the time frame was. Maybe somebody changed this, but the major bullet on that said 2025. All the sub-bullets said 2023.
We just did.
Yep.
Yep.
We brought it down.
We're gonna modify it to 23.
Okay.
There's a typo.
That's a much better timeline.
Yes.
And regarding watershed stewardship, it wasn't up long enough to see if you dealt with district-only properties or the larger watershed that included many other public and private agencies, which are clearly part of the important watershed. And the strategic plan should be really clear about working with private and public agencies that.
It seems like we talk a lot.
Which we have, in our watershed, upper division, we have about 70,000 acres that is in the watershed. Less than 10% is owned by NID.
Right.
So we have to work as much as we can.
So it's a combination of different things, Bob. We've got, Goal 4, we do talk about participate in regional collaboration. Just in that section of Goal 4, grant funding opportunities per year, we do work with other agencies and collaborate, just as a practice. For the forest management plan, that is an overview of that whole 70,000 acres within our system. Sort of, you know, we can only do what we can in our small portion of that, but practically and from a professional and community-based viewpoint, we definitely collaborate and work with our partnering agencies and private citizens to make sure that, you know, watersheds cross political boundaries, right? So we want to make sure that they're all inclusive.
Yeah, I know that's been an ongoing practice at NID. I just want to make sure it was included in the plan.
Yep.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Aurora Penaluna, Customer Service Administrator, and I'm here today with Casey Strong, our water efficiency technician. And when it comes to water efficiency, Casey is really our expert, so I'm just going to turn it right over to her and just turn it to work.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Casey Strong, and I'm the water efficiency technician. And so just jumping right in.
Get that speaker
Microphone.
close. Microphone.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks.
So this is just an informational topic, just so we can inform you what we've done, what we're currently doing, and what we hope to do in the future.
Point it up.
This one?
There you go.
Okay, so first, just who we are. I am the only person under our water efficiency umbrella, but water efficiency is under our customer service department. And so with that, there's myself and Aurora. She helps me a lot when developing programs or administering them, but when it comes to the day-to-day operations of water efficiency, that is myself. We have our customer service representatives. They help a lot on the phones with me. A lot of our calls in the summertime, if someone's calling to ask about their bill, their water consumption, we get hundreds of calls of those, especially in the summertime. So the representatives really help in take the calls. We speak to our customers, help them hands-on, figure out why their consumption is high, how they determine leaks, if they have a leak, if their irrigation system. And so if the customer needs help, then we go to our customer service technician. They go out in the field, and then they are hands-on with the customer in the field, show them where their meter is,
how they can isolate the leak themselves, but that's just kind of a wrap-up of who we are, and mostly it is myself doing most of the water efficiency work. These are our permanent water use restrictions, which is in section 3.05 of our rules and regulations. So these are regulations or restrictions that we ask our customers to do year-round. It doesn't matter if we're in a drought, if it's raining, please don't water afterwards, direct your sprinklers so they're not running down the street. And those are things that we, as a staff, we ask our customers to do, and then if our technicians or our operators are out in the field, if they see those, we'll then go ahead and notify the customer with just a door hanger. We use these restrictions purely as an educational tool to help our customers. We want to educate them on how to be more efficient with their water use and how they can then conserve by simply redirecting your sprinklers and not allowing it to run down the street. You can cut out a couple HCF a month because you're not using that water waste. When it comes to watering per week, we just recommend customers that they start with no more than 3 days a week. When the drought restrictions went away, the restrictions for watering use per week also went with that. So we're just recommending to our customers that they continue with the 3 days a week. If you need to water more than that because your plants aren't responding, you're not going to be penalized, but we just recommend start small and then increase as needed.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity. So one side of the street, you say water Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, the other side, the other 3 days?
Mm-hmm.
What's the rationale for that?
Those are just what came out of when they passed the drought restrictions last year.
Oh, this is something that passed us?
Yes, so the board passed those restrictions last year in our drought resolution, and so we're just sticking with that. But there's a lot of customers out there who just have a simple timer where they can't plan certain days per week. So we just say, if you can just water 3 days a week, it's okay what days you water on. We just ask that you will only water 3 days a week. So even if you're an address and you're watering on, a Friday, that's okay. We're not gonna penalize you. We're just asking that you simply cut your water usage down.
It's also easier on the treated water system as a whole,
That's what
rather than having huge fluctuations with outdoor watering, because you'll see big spikes in water demands during outdoor watering time, especially when it's super hot.
Okay.
So one of the big things that water efficiency has been overseeing the last several years is converting our meters from the census radio reads to the Badger cellular reads. We started this in 2016, and we started in Cascade Shores with just a small project where we pulled all of the old census meter out and put in the cellular technology. This is a digital display meter, and then it's supposed to communicate basically like your cell phone does. So it connects to the cell phone towers once a day, normally between 9 and 11 in the morning. It will send in your read and your usage for the last 24 hours to the cloud, and then we can view that usage here in the office. We've expanded, obviously, over the last several years, and we have about 12,000 of our meters upgraded to these cellular Badger meters. Our customer service technicians, they replace meters as components fail. So when we're reading a cycle, they then have to go hand read, several meters that didn't report in or our census. If they're stuck meters, then they go out, diagnose what the problem is with the older meter, and then they'll replace it as a component fails. We're working with our maintenance department right now on doing a mass replacement, and they're starting in the outer areas and working their way in. So we almost have all of Auburn completed, most of Lake of the Pines, and then they're also working in Lake Wildwood as well.
Casey, was there a supply problem with these?
Yes, we did have a big supply problem during COVID where we couldn't get meters, and then we couldn't get the endpoints because they come two separately. We also have an issue in our area where cell signal isn't the best in all of the areas. So Cascade Shores, although they still have their original meters, the endpoint that communicates they've all been switched out to a mobile read. So we have went back to having to drive by the area to read them, and those reads only get ported in monthly because there's no cell signal, and our technicians were having to go out and hand read them more, so it was easier for us to put in the mobile reads. And right now we have about 1,100 mobile reads in the ground. I mean, Alta Sierra has areas that don't read, Lake of the Pines, Lake Wildwood, Nevada City. It's very, isolated streets that don't have service. We worked with, Beacon to have another option for those meters.
Having all the,
Oh, I was gonna say, has the supply problem been
Yeah.
alleviated?
Yeah, so we have, all of the endpoints that we have, purchased and we're on order, and then, our meters are as well. So that's why our maintenance department is now able to start to have dedicated crews going out there to replace meters.
with all that to consider, makes that 12,000 look more impressive.
Yeah, so.
Oh, I have one other question about these Badger meters. Did the price go up significantly? I know that there was a moment where we bought a chunk of them and had them in reserve, if you will. What is the price differential now in those meters, if you're buying one today versus when we bought them 3 years ago?
We did see an increase, in November 2022. I want to say off the top of my head, it was about between 5 and 7%.
Oh, okay.
Not as bad as you.
Not as bad as I would have thought. Wow, okay, cool, thank you.
So just an overview of what the Badger meter looks like. It is a digital display, and then it also allows customers to, it's more friendly when they're reading the meter. So as you know, we read our meters in 100 cubic feet, so all the meters in the ground are cubic foot meters. So when they're looking at their meter, it gives them status indicators on the bottom so they can see that their meter's registering correctly, if there's any alarms on the meter, backflow detected, leaks, if there hasn't had any water go through their meter. So those are all system indicators that they can just at a glance look at their meter and see it's registering okay or what else is going on. When we talk to customers on the phone, a lot of times we direct them, the screen will change on their meter, and we direct them to the third screen because it shows them how many gallons went through the meter on the previous minute. So if they have a leak at their property or they are trying to determine how much water their irrigation system is using, we just have them wait till that third screen pops up, and then they can actually determine how many gallons, not cubic feet, gallons went through their meter.
Is that feature available on drive-by meters?
Yes, yeah, so it's the...
We have a leak on those three. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the meter itself is the same. There's an endpoint that connects to the meter, and that's the only part that actually changes for the customer. So once a day, these meters port in their information, and this is what we can see here in the office. So if we have a customer call in, we can go into Beacon and view the customer's usage. So this is just what my home screen looks like on Beacon. I can see our status of our meters themselves, how many leaks, no flows we have, so that I can just do a quick glance at that. And then I can also see what our top users are for the week and for the month. And then if we have a customer that we're working with, maybe they have a leak, we can set them as a favorite. So when I open my Badger, I can just see it right there, who the customer is and if we're monitoring them still. With these meters, we can get day-by-day usage, and it actually will go down to hour, and sometimes it'll get us down to the minute of how much water went through the meter. So this family right here, this property that I was looking at, just in December and January, they averaged about 90 gallons a day. So we can see when, water usage started in the morning, throughout the day, there's no leaks at their property, there's no continuous flow. So we just can look and say, nope, there's no issue at your house, you're averaging about 90 gallons a day. In the summertime, we get a lot of calls where customers say, I used how much water? And with that, we can then go into Badger and we can see where or what time they're using their water. So this is the same single-family home that used 90 gallons a day in December and January. In July of last year, they averaged 810 gallons a day of water. So we can look and see that they were using the 3 days a week system with their irrigation. And when we look at Badger, we look for patterns. So we look for water usage that's the same amount. And although we don't necessarily know it's their irrigation, it's pretty easy to see when every morning or every couple days when their water comes on between 6 and 8 and they're using 1,200 gallons, and most likely that's their irrigation system. So then we can also track previous usage because these, with Beacon, As long as they have the same meter in the ground, it will give us their usage back from when the meter was installed. So for this customer, I was able to go back to 2021, and in 2021, the customer was averaging about 1,300 gallons a day. And so they had a 40% decrease from 2021 to 2022, and that's by simply reducing the amount of days that they watered per week, and then reducing the amount of time that they watered, because their irrigation system was going off, but it was using about 1,500 gallons per time rather than 800 gallons. So it's just a tool that we can use in the office. When customers call in, we're able to dive into this and then really talk to the customer about when their water's going off and how they're using it during that time.
Do you have a sense of how many customers you're interacting with every year?
Hundreds. We, I mean, on average in the summertime, we'll get 350 calls a day in customer service, and I would say that at least a quarter to a half of those are customers calling originally about their bill, but their bill increase always comes down to the consumption because the base rate never changes. So when they're calling about their consumption, this is a really great tool that we can use for that.
So, Casey, so the state recommended rates are what, 52 to 55 gallons per day per person?
Yeah, right.
For indoor water.
For indoor usage only,
Not landscaping.
not landscaping.
Have they indicated we have to be the marshals on that, the sheriff?
There are regulations that will be coming down soon.
Yeah, there's been new regulations that were just recently issued that address the outdoor water use, and there will be reporting requirements for retail water agencies such as ourselves.
So we will be required to monitor the difference between indoor and outdoor?
We will have to, they'll essentially use their new calculations to develop kind of water budgets, but for the most part, they'll be implemented on a district-by-district basis. So you'll kind of report the aggregate, but we go through a water audit every year, and you do have to provide all of the meter data separated by customer type, whether it's residential or industrial, commercial. The draft regulations just came out. I haven't paid that close of attention to them, but we'll complete a review and report back.
Just a quick question. Is this available to users, or do they have to contact you to get this information?
So as of right now, there is a app available for customers. It's called Ion Water. We have done a soft rollout of this program. Originally, we didn't know how it was going to work with customers, how they were going to be interacting, and then just the customer calls for us being able to work with customers and allowing them to see their usage. We've done a soft rollout, so they do have to request it. If somebody calls in and we see that they have a Badger meter and we're talking to them, we will email them a link. So right now, we have about 270 users that use the Ion Water app. It's a great tool for them because they can go in and actually set a leak alert that will email them when their meter is detecting a leak. And they can set the alert to whatever they want. If they want it to notify them if 1 gallon went through their meter for 24 hours, it'll send them an email. So it is something that we will do a mass notification on, but with only 12,000 of our 20+ thousand customers having it, it's hard to explain to customers that, oh, sorry, we haven't updated your meter yet, so you don't have that ability. So we try to just do it on a one-on-one basis for now, and then we will be rolling that out when we get more meters. For our customers with the mobile endpoints, they can use the Ion Water, but it will only give them their water consumption for the month. It does not break it down to them day by day. So the leak alerts, they'll only get the leak alert when we read their meter for the month and it ports into the system. So that will be something that we have to handle with those mobile users, that they can do their monthly usage, but seeing the day by day is not going to be an option for them. So it also allows us to identify customers with leaks. On the customer's card that we see here in the office, it'll give us a leak banner and it'll tell us how many gallons are leaking per hour. So right now we have about 1,100 leaks in our system, and they range from 1 gallon an hour to 1,000 gallons an hour. We check these daily, and then if a customer has a leak with 100 gallons per hour or more, we then dispatch one of our customer service technicians out to the property. Yes,
This leak is on our side or on their?
on the customer side.
Customer side of
So, yeah, so we go out, we notify the customer that we have determined that there is a leak at their property, and then if someone's home, our technicians will help them try and isolate where that leak is. If there's nobody home, we shut their water meter off, leave them a door hanger. That way we can stop the water usage for now until they can find their leak. We do have our customer service technicians. We only have 2 of them. So on top of their daily tasks, that's where we set the threshold of 100 gallons per hour. We just don't have the staff with our technicians to get to 1,000 leaks in a week. The customers that have lower leaks, we send them a letter, and we send out the letters twice a month. So they get a letter in the mail with information so that they can then go out and find their leak at their property.
Going back to your last comment on the previous slide. So the mobile, meters, they're getting read once a month. When it gets read, do you get all of the data is just batch data, this is what they use that month, or are they getting it for 30 individual days?
It will only read the meter for the entire
So
month.
your debugability for a leak there is just, there was a spike
It
over 12 months?
So the meter is still gonna detect a leak. So the meter will detect a leak if the water has ran through the meter for 24 hours without a 15-minute break. So the meter itself, the icon, if they were to walk out, that leak icon on their meter is going to show that there is a leak indicator on there.
And when you do the read at the end of the month, there'll be a flag?
There'll be that yellow banner will come up. So they'll get a letter in the mail. We most likely will see a spike in their consumption. So when we read meters just monthly, we also do audits of everyone's account. So I go through every single account with a high consumption, and if it's over a threshold, we will then send a technician out to the property as well. So most likely they'll get a letter and somebody will come out, but I just can't guarantee that it's gonna be right when we notice the leak due to the staffing and how high their leak is. So
there was 1,116 leaks detected on March 13th alone, one day or year to date?
So that's just year to date. So some leaks have went on for several months. We've notified every customer, even if we've notified them the month before or the week before, they still will get a letter. So there are customers that are getting letters every couple of weeks, every month, notifying them that there's a leak at their property.
1,000 gallons per hour was storm-related?
We had a lot of leaks related to the storm up in Cascade Shores. We did have a couple that were over 1,000 gallons an hour. We obviously dispatched those out immediately. It did take us a couple days to determine the source of the leak because their meters were under several feet of snow, and we had to get our water distribution operators and maintenance out there to clear the snow for us to be able, our technicians dug for 3 hours one day trying to find a meter for a leak that was this large.
With the cellular-based meters, you can't remotely turn them off?
No, it's all manual.
Just a point of clarification, are these 1,100 leaks, are these unique leaks or are these reported leaks? So for example, if they have a leak reported in January and also a leak reported in February at the same location, have those been removed?
Yeah, so the leak indicator will go away if there's a 15-minute break in their usage. So that flag will instantly go down once the meter ports back in. So let's say you fixed your leak at 10 o'clock in the morning and the meter had ported in at 9. The next day when it ports in at 9 a.m., that leak flag will be gone. So some of these leaks are ones that have been for several months, and some of them are ones that have just started a day or two ago. So when we notify customers via mail, we send them a letter that gives them the information of what their reading was, what their gallon per hour leak is, and then also when we read the meter. So we try to give them as much information as possible for them to self-diagnose their problem prior to them contacting somebody, you know, to come out and help find their leak. We give them information on how to detect a water leak, how to isolate their leaks, and then how to actually read the water meters themselves. So we really try and give our customers all the tools they need to find and repair their leak themselves.
I have a question. So you guys mail through U.S. Mail?
Yes.
Do you have an ability to email someone so they get a notice much more quickly?
We don't have a way to mass email. If we have a customer's email on file and they have a leak, you know, when I'm going through these letters, because I do all of this by hand. I audit every account and then I note every account. So when I pull open their account, if there's an email, I do try and send them this information via email. But when I'm sending out 150 letters in the mail, it's hard to email every single one of those customers without having a mass way to pull the information, because that's me manually entering all of their information. So we do a manual letter, you know, it ports in the information from the spreadsheet, and then it gets mailed.
Or somehow could be automated in some way. I mean, you know, how many hours does that take you to do 150 letters?
It'll take me a few hours to get through them.
Only a few hours?
I've been doing this for 7 years. I've gotten quick at it.
It would be cool if there was some way in which the badge.
It would be,
and hey, leak detected, and then the system would send out an email or a letter.
So it does if they have ion water, but not internally.
So 270 won't get done automatically.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
20,000.
Mm-hmm.
That will increase.
So keep in mind that Casey does have a mail merge, and so she's not physically typing each and every letter. But it is important to us that when we send someone information, it's accurate, that we've looked at their account.
Sure.
So that's where she's going into each and every account to see the history, to see what's going on, so that, and then to note the account that we've sent them out a letter, so that when our customer service representatives then get a phone call, they have some history. So even with some automation, there's always a human element. Oh, Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
Is there more automation that would help her with her job that's available that we have not purchased?
We're hopeful that maybe when we get to Tyler, there'll be additional tools.
Okay. We should revisit that when we get there.
Absolutely.
So now moving into, away from our Badger meters, what NID is doing to conserve. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen our beautiful landscape out front in the summertime. Back in 2016, or 15, is when they removed 3,400 square feet of turf out front, and they replaced it with our demonstration garden. So in our demonstration garden, we have 4 different areas. We have different types of plants that are water efficient. We have different irrigation systems, smart timer, and we encourage people or customers, the public, anybody, to go out, walk through there. They can pull a form, and it shows them what plants are there, what type of irrigation system we use, and then we only water that landscape in the summertime a max of 3 days a week. So that's something that we can tell our customers. You can still have a beautiful landscape with using drought-tolerant plants. We have mulch out there, so that we can continue to push that mulch is a great tool for water conservation. And it's also just a great talking piece for customers when they're, you know, concerned about cutting their water usage. We can say, we only water, we didn't move to 3 days a week watering until July and August of last year. We did 1 day, and then we moved to 2 days, and then during the hot months, we went to 3 days, and then we backed it off. Because our goal is to use the least amount of water and still have a beautiful landscape in the front. So that's something that we do. We pride ourselves on having that beautiful water-efficient demonstration garden out front. So Mulch Magic is another great event that our community loves. And last year, we gave away 290 yards of shredded cedar. We do it at the fairgrounds. They graciously let us use their arena area, and we work with the Boy Scouts to help customers load their mulch. This is a self-loading event, so we allow anybody in the community to come, bring their truck, bring their trailer, and we ask that they get approximately 1 cubic yard of mulch, which is the back of a truck. and they can go and use it to increase the water conservation in their gardens at home. We have the Boy Scouts there. It's a great fundraiser for them. The community loves that they have somebody there to help them load their mulch, and then we just ask that they tip their scout. It's a fundraiser for their annual camp out. This year, it's going to be on Saturday, May 20th. It's from 7 to 11. We don't recommend that you come at 11 because most of the time the mulch is already gone by then. 2 years ago, by 9 a.m., the mulch was gone.
Where do we get the mulch?
We buy it from Rare Earth.
Oh, we buy it?
We buy the mulch, and they deliver it for us to the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds donates the space, and then we have the Boy Scouts there to load it. So it's a great event. People love it. Hundreds of community members come out to get those.
Boy Scouts are busy.
They are busy.
They load out, the gun and ammo sale on Father's Day for the Rangers.
It's the same group that comes, the same troop comes to the mulch event. So other things that we do, we try and do as much community outreach as possible. Last year we did the Union's Home and Garden Show. It's a 2-day event where we have a booth there, informational flyers, handouts, and giveaways for the community. We also gave a 30-minute presentation on drought, where NID was at in the drought, and then a similar presentation of this, just what we're doing to get out in the community. We do the Fire Safe Council. It's a kids carnival up at the Rood Center. We're going to be participating in that again this year. It's a great family fun event. We normally have coloring pages, painting, giveaways for kids, just to get NID out into the community and just give away some stuff. This year we're doing the Food and Farm Conference. We've also done that in the past. And then Greg will be giving a presentation on the plan for water at the Food and Farm Conference this year. And then we also work with the Master Gardeners. So they have their demonstration garden over here. We work one-on-one with the Master Gardeners. They're going to be having their 40th anniversary this September, so we'll also have a booth there. They're planning on having a pretty large event to celebrate that. Moving into our rebate programs. In 2020, we did a pilot program of a toilet rebate. We started out with a budget for 200 available toilets. It's a $100 rebate to replace an older inefficient toilet with something new. So they just had to show us proof that they had an older toilet, they removed it, installed a new one, and they would get a $100 rebate towards that. It is for treated water customers only, so that we hope to see a decrease in their water consumption. We did reduce that total to 100 rebates in 2022, and then for 2023, we redirected our rebate funds to another pilot program. So we're only at this point having 10 rebates available. Based on the number of rebates that we've given away, there's not customers knocking down our door for them. So if we get more than 10, we can then adjust at that point and see how our other rebates are doing. But to date, we've only given away 95 toilet rebates. So this is a program that is still there, but we have scaled it back to allow for other programs that might be more well received from our customers. This year, we are going to be offering a raw water storage tank to our ag water customers. This rebate will become available in spring, so within the next month or so, we'll launch this program. We have a budget of $15,000 for this rebate program. We are really trying to grow our rebates and grow our program, so these are just pilot programs. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to expand that, but rebates take a lot of money, work, and in auditing our customers. So the rebate total will be about 25% of the cost of the rebate that they choose. We're going to have a 3-tiered system so that we can allow smaller, maybe 1/2-inch customers, as well as our larger customers with storage tanks. So they will have to apply for the rebate, purchase and install the water tank, and then there will be an on-site inspection where we go out, we visually can see that their water is coming from their water box to their tank, and then at that point we would be able to issue the rebate. This rebate will become a credit on the customer's account, so their account must be in good standings, no delinquencies. So this, instead of doing a rebate check, we're just going to issue it as a credit on their bill where they can use it in the future.
Could we coordinate some of the larger tanks with the fire departments so that they would know where they're going and could site them so that could be used for refilling in case of a wildland fire?
These would be privately owned
Yeah,
tanks, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to give that information out.
Because we're not actually installing the tanks. It's completely up to the customer, and the tanks will be on their private property.
Understood. Yeah, and I know there's privacy issues, but I also know that without secondary water sources, some lands are not being insured anymore. So I'm just thinking we could kill two birds with one stone here.
It's up to the customer to notify the fire department of where their storage tank is, and obviously welcome them whenever a need arises.
So we could just mention that to them?
Without sharing information, is just point to, the draft, requirement, water draft requirement. Because there needs to be a specific location, height, depth, these sorts of things. But it's online. For Placer County, if you're putting in a water tank, do this, and then we can just connect to it. So we could just, if somebody comes to do this, we could point them to Nevada County or Placer County.
Also, that could be used for fire suppression?
Because had I known this, I could have done something with my ponds that, after the fact is very difficult to do, but it's very simple implementation. It's just where you locate the orifices and those sorts of things.
That's something that we can put in there just as a disclaimer that they can look into local regulations.
Placer County one.
Yeah, if you want to do that, then
It's
we'll.
like one page that says do this.
Yeah.
If you're building a pool, a pond, or putting in a storage tank, do this.
Okay, yeah, if you want to send the link, then we can provide that to customers when they apply.
This could go a long ways.
So that's going to be our rebate that's available this year for our irrigation customers. We'll have about 40 to 50 rebates available, and we hope that we'll be able to grow that in the future. We also want to venture into the turf removal rebates this year. So this is a rebate that we're currently working on, and we're hoping to have ready for spring, so within the next couple months as well. We're going to have a minimum of 16 rebates available. I know that it sounds like a small number, but it is a pilot program, and turf rebates, after doing the research that I've done, they are very costly to a water district to do so. So we're going to start with $1 per square foot of converted turf, and the max rebate will be $1,000. So even if the customer has 250 square feet, 500, they'll still be able to get a rebate, and that will adjust our rebate totals from there, just based on our total budget left over. This is for treated water customers only, so that we can actually visually see the decrease in their water consumption. The applicant must also have a 25% greater water usage, and their water usage must exceed 1,500 cubic feet during the irrigation months. So during the months of April to October, their water usage has to increase at least 25% and exceed 1,500 cubic feet. We set this as the parameter so that we're not getting customers with 600 cubic feet that would like to remove their lawn. We're not going to see the savings in the water usage with low amount of with water usage like that. They're just not using enough water for us to see the water savings in the total water usage.
How will the customer know now? How will they assess their ability to meet that criteria?
So we can provide them with their water usage. Most of the time when customers calling for a rebate, they call and I talk to them one-on-one. And so before they even apply for their rebate, I already tell them if they're going to, qualify or not. So that's something that I can provide them with their water consumption, and then they have to meet it for 2 years so that we will be able to see that decrease. And we have all of their records of their water consumption in our system, so we can go back once a month and see their usage. They do have to replace their turf with water efficient landscapes. So based on what other water agencies have done, and what I've found in research is 3 plants per 100 square feet, and then no hardscape. So if they're going to use any sort of cement or concrete, they have to be able to have either sand or rock, something to allow the water to seep through into the ground. So if you're having hardscapes, you're really just creating runoff if they're irrigating around it. And then they have to use some sort of mulch, rock, something around their plants to create that water efficiency landscape. And then they have to convert their landscape from any overhead sprays to drip, micro sprays, bubblers, something like that. So we're isolating the water to the plant itself. And then again, rebates will become a credit on their bill. We no check rebates, just a credit on their customer bill.
I still have a question on that one. The applicant's usage must be 25% greater after they make the transition?
No. So this is just for them to qualify for the rebate. They have to, their usage has to increase by 25% for
During
them
the summer months.
During the summer months.
It's showing their outdoor water usage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the.
So when we look at a customer account, most of the time between November and March, they have low usage, and then we can see their usage increase in the summertime. So that's something that we can, change, update. It's still in the preliminary stages of creating the rebate, but that's just what, based off of what other water agencies are doing, they have a threshold there for customers.
Okay, thank
you.
Casey, can you say why we're not allowing rebates for synthetic turf?
Synthetic turf, you can use more water on it because it gets hot and you have to still water your synthetic turf.
Do you?
No, I have synthetic turf.
You do?
No.
No. The way I think we should probably allow synthetic turf.
I think so too.
The only time you have to water it is when it has pet waste on it, or if it's dusty. If you don't have a pet, you're never watering it.
Okay.
Or microplastic.
That could be an argument. But it also depends on where it discharges to and whether it does or not.
I'm comfortable with no synthetic.
Really? See, I think we should allow, it's very
Most-
common in other water.
We can do either or. Most other agencies did no synthetic turf, which is why we included it, but I'm open to whichever.
It's because of the runoff issue. Most agencies are also trying to address. They do. They have sand underneath and then it's connected to an underdrain. Otherwise, you'd have vector issues. Why don't we just look into it more and see?
No, I'm just interested, because I know the city of Roseville allows that, my dad did it at his house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm really concerned about the plastic getting in the watershed.
Me too.
I am, and
But they also.
it's not a good thing.
See what.
I'd rather have a bocce ball court.
I would also hearken to what Casey said, that a lot of installations do include irrigation because they can, we're thinking of putting it in our remodeled landscape, and the contractor said it can get to 120 degrees. And so if you have little kids playing on it, they said, you've got to have a water system.
I think that might be a contractor trying to get extra. I literally have it in my backyard in the valley, and that I think may have been the wives' tale when it was first starting to be installed. That is still getting carried through, but it's not necessary. I walk on it all the time with my bare feet, and it's not hot.
And my dog.
I'm not actually at all. My dog walks on it. Yeah, I wouldn't have put it in if it was like that.
Our little kids play on
The
it.
amount of synthetic turf.
It will be naturally limited by the dollar amount. It's a whole lot more expensive than that.
Giving it, you get X amount, you get, up to $1,000, you can do turf or.
One more plastic.
I think the question is whether you want to address this microplastic issue. I don't know enough I'm aware of microplastics, but I don't have enough information at this time.
It's everywhere.
Well, we know it's everywhere,
But I think it's worth looking into.
Why don't we just look into it? Okay.
Okay, so we will look into synthetic turf and if we'll allow it or not, and then I'll work with Jennifer and Chip on, if we'll allow it to state or not. Oh,
That actually was my question.
Okay.
I just didn't understand the thinking, so.
Synthetic
I had
turf.
the same question as you.
Yeah.
That's my question.
I looked at, for the rebates, I looked at PCWA, Sac Suburban, and then a couple of the Bay Area, and that's where I've based a lot of our qualifications off of, is just neighboring water usage, or neighboring water agencies in there. So, if we want to allow it, I'll do some research and then get back to Jennifer on it.
I get a hard time.
So additional rebates that we have thought of that we would like to start in the upcoming years. We felt that the other two were more of a priority than these ones because we have a rebate now for our raw water customers and a rebate for our treated water customers. We would hope to someday be able to do an irrigation timer rebate where somebody could upgrade their watering system and maybe upgrade to a smart timer where they can set the days of the week, they can set the times that they want to do, and then they can conserve water with their timer and not having to just set a few days a week. They can actually pinpoint the time. So that's a rebate that we have thought of, and then it would most likely be $50 to $100 per timer. And then also, we get a lot of calls from customers that they have fixed their leak and they're looking for some sort of help on their leak. We do have our leak adjustment program, but we do have a lot of customers that don't qualify for the leak adjustment, but they still are looking for help. So if we have a leak rebate where we can show that they had a leak at their property, they fixed their leak, and then, maybe $50 towards their plumber bill or $100. So those are just rebates that we haven't dove into, but those are something that we would like to potentially offer to our customers in the future.
The water agencies that you contacted, they include that leak rebate?
There has been. Aurora and I went to a conference last fall, and they had, I don't remember which water agency it was, but they had a leak adjustment program, and then they also had a leak rebate so that they could help multiple customers, because most leak adjustment programs are for leaks that are larger, and then you could also help your, customers that maybe had a smaller leak that don't qualify for usage or the dollar amount on their bill. So there's a couple out there. We definitely have to do more research on those ones, but just based on the feedback that we hear from our customers in the office, those would be something that they are looking for.
I think the leak rebate is good. The leak bill adjustment, I'm not super supportive of. We've seen a lot of people utilize it to just simply for a leak that they should have been fixing anyway. So you have to think about somebody else is paying for that adjustment.
It's their responsibility.
It is.
Build their new pool.
That's right. Well, you just have people who just aren't going to fix something. They know it's been leaking forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't incentivize them to fix it.
Yeah. So we also have created a student poster contest. We actually came up with this idea right at the start of COVID, and then when schools shut down, we weren't able to get into the schools to actually do a poster contest with them. So we've brought it back to life this year, and then hopefully in the fall, when schools get back in to session, we can go to them and maybe do a presentation to their schools about water conservation, how kids can be helping at home, and then have them create a poster where we can either display them here in the office, create a calendar with their artwork that the schools can use for fundraisers, something along those lines. It will be from kindergarten through 12th grade, so all ages would be available, and for schools inside our district. There would be a theme to it. Right now we have the theme of Stop the Drip to Save the Drop, but that could change depending on what the state is doing in the fall as well. And the illustration just needs to be why saving water is important. They can use hand-drawn, they can use digital art for high school students, and try and just get to all of the ages in our district. We would try and incentivize the teachers to have their classes do them as a project, have them entered in to win some sort of gift card for their class, and then also we would have 12 winners, and each winner would win something for their artwork, and then hopefully create a calendar out of their artwork that we could have available. Yeah.
Okay. So I love this program.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get into the schools, we need to educate, and we need to illustrate why saving water is important. I like the message that, in my particular viewpoint, conservation is not going to get us out of the mismanagement of our water supply by the state of California. So I would like that message in there.
In the school contest?
Heck, well, no.
I mean, these are like 5-year-olds, so.
I'm thinking that's not a great idea.
Well, I'm gonna say, hey, one side's saying we can serve our way out of this, and we can't, because conservation isn't working in the valley with a lot of farmers. So, and they're the most conserved group in California. So I'm just saying that conservation goes a certain way, but it's not going to solve our water management problems in California. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I mean, when does somebody hear that message? Not from you, huh?
That is not as part of the school child poster contest. If you would like to submit your own submission, we will have an independent panel of judges.
Actually, I have two pictures I want to put up, actually, I'll talk to you about it.
Color crayon drawing only.
Well, you know what, I want to add something, not to the poster contest, by the way, that's wonderful, really a wonderful program. But I've been going out in the field and talking to a lot of folks, and I continually am asked, so why do we have to conserve? I mean, you know, we got all this water and it's going out into the ocean, why do we have to conserve? And, you know, there's lots and lots of answers, but it would be really cool if we, maybe our media department or something, came up with, you know, I know we have water conservation as a way of life, but something that specifically addresses, you know, we have abundance, but the rest of the state is not so abundant. And, you know, water is something that we just can't waste. I mean, we need to be conservative with it, no matter if it's raining for 70 straight days or not. So it would be interesting to say, you know, why is conservation necessary, even when we have a lot of water?
We can work on something like that.
Yeah, the state is mismanaged.
Yeah, we can.
Well, we could say, don't be like the state and go from a surplus to a deficit in 1 year.
Yeah, right. But
We can work on messaging.
I think it would be an important message. I'd like to see something about that. And Maven, you know, colleagues know Maven is, they've been kind of putting out different formats of that, and they have some really good ideas in there. I just think it'd be cool to have something.
We can look at that.
There's a lot of good messaging out there from
Yeah, there is.
organizations, agencies, et cetera, and that have a lot of really interesting aspects to them. So we can definitely continue to strive down that.
Almost like a mission statement or something, not really, but, you know, it's like, we need to conserve. Anyway, thank you.
Can you talk about how the $10,000 budget will be used?
So that will be used for teachers, incentivizing teachers to enter their students or to do the project. We will provide all of the paper, crayon, anything that the teachers need for their classroom to actually complete the poster contest. We will provide that for them, aside from if they were doing digital art or something on the computer. We don't want the teachers to have to be spending the money to create the poster contest. And then also, we kind of came up with the calendar. My son's school, they did a fundraiser last year, and any artwork they sold, the school got back as like a fundraiser for their art department. So we can create a calendar, give so many to the schools, and they can sell them as a fundraiser. So just something that we can take our budget and then push it out to the schools, so they're not having to use their budget for the contest itself.
We'll create the calendars for them?
Yeah, we can work with a local.
It's pretty easy, just submit it.
Yeah.
One thing that you didn't have to worry about, pre-COVID, are you gonna allow AI art to be?
I don't think I know what AI art is.
I don't think we would know.
Like ChatGPT, like the AI chatbots, where you type something in and it produces a bunch of stuff. They have AI art that you can type in premises and the computer will automatically generate.
It's artificial intelligence art.
Yeah.
It might be so good we won't even know.
Right.
Yeah, so just something that the high schoolers will be well aware of it.
Yeah, we do want to allow, you know, any type of art that a student might be interested in. So if that is what they're interested in and that's how they want to pursue.
You might want to make a subcategory for that.
Okay.
Yep, it's a wild world we live in.
It is.
Yep, and there's all sorts of ethical issues because, Yeah. We'll get into it, but basically, these machine learning algorithms, you basically just feed them a bunch of paintings, and they learn from that, and then you can generate the prompts from them. So essentially, some artists had to create the artwork, which then gets fed into this machine, and then the AI creates it, which can be based off of another artist's work that they're not getting paid for or credit for, so.
Chat, whatever.
So ChatGPT is a version of AI, but it's a chat version. This is an art version. So instead of just feeding like a bunch of, prompts in text form, it just feeds a bunch of paintings in, and it describes them in words. And then it can then do its magic behind the scenes in the black box and produces. So but if you just Google like AI art, there'll be a million results.
Could be Mona Lisa with a frown. Fair enough. Because she didn't.
You can do all sorts of, you can say, literally just describe a scene to it, and it will create a painting, or several different versions of it.
So one of the things to point out will be that
No comment.
the contest will be age-based, so we'll have different.
That makes sense.
So we won't be comparing the kindergartner's crayon drawings to the AI art. And also, we'll have human judges that will be asking.
Human judges.
What?
Do you have a sense of how many schools will be involved?
So in our district, there's about 6 schools, because we have schools in Auburn too. There's a few schools down there. So we'll put it out to all the school districts, and then whoever would like to involved.
Including the charters?
Yeah, including the charter.
More than 6 if you include the charter.
But like, Grass Valley Charter isn't in our district, because we don't supply water to Grass Valley Charter.
Oh, I see.
And so not every school in Grass Valley is a part of NID, or uses our water. So moving on, something else that we would like to start this year is WaterWise house calls for new homeowners. This would be something, if a new homeowner called in, they would be able to schedule an appointment for myself to go out, show them where their water meter is at the property, advise them where their shut-off valves, because a lot of customers don't know where their water meter is out at the street, how to shut their water off. So if they were to have a leak at their property, they can do that themselves. How to read their water meter, ways that they can isolate a leak. We can also provide them with previous water consumption, so that they know. A lot of times, even though you move into a new house, the water habits of the home typically will stay the same unless, based on irrigation at the property. So your irrigation isn't necessarily going to change just because 4 people move into a house that 2 people lived in prior. You're still going to have that spike in your consumption. So we can just notify them, just be aware, in the springtime, your bills are going to go up because of that. So that's something we can provide to them. And then also how to calculate their water usage. We get several calls from customers where they just simply don't know what 100 cubic feet is, how many gallons that is, and then we can show them based off of their water usage, how they can actually calculate their water bill. So that's something that we're going to start allowing for customers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I work with the real estate community a lot, and so when someone purchases a new house, they often want to know how much was the PG&E bill for the last 12 months. And then are we able to provide the last 12 months of water bills to somebody who isn't the property owner?
We will provide them the last 12 months of water usage. It doesn't have any of the previous customers' information on it. We don't provide any of that, but yes, we do provide water consumption for the property.
Maybe they can put a little note, check with that.
Well, I assumed that was true, but.
Or the consultation also.
Yeah, they should be able to. Okay, thank you.
So the last thing that we have here that we do is the state reporting. So monthly, we report to the State Water Resource Control Board, and this is our monthly water production and our monthly water supplied. So we provide that to the state, any drought restrictions we have, what our drought response is, how many customers have called in about water waste, how many properties have we went to in regards to that water waste. So that's something we do on a monthly report for the state. Annually, we have to provide water audits, which Jennifer had touched on earlier about, and this is over the entire year. So each water system has its own audit. So we have E. George, Loma Rica, every single one down to Smartsville has to have their own water audit. These water audits, we have to put in all the water that NID supplied and then water that we imported and exported. And that's imported and exported through our system. So it looks at Loma Rica and E. George as their own system. So we have to put in how much water we export from through our intertie from Loma Rica to E. George and E. George back to Loma Rica. So then we have these audits validated, and we work with Kavanaugh Associates, and they go through and they grade each one of our areas based on what the district is doing to improve our validation numbers. And then at the end of the audit, it will calculate what our losses were for the year and then what our areas that we can improve on. Something that we are constantly working on improving is our production number. So what we supply, our water supplied for the year, making sure that our meters are calibrated correctly and that we're actually giving them accurate data so that they can produce the correct, estimated leak for the system. So we do that once a year, and then they're validated and we submit them to the state.
So with the high price of food, a lot of people are starting to plant trees, grow gardens, which will increase their water usage. How do we, is that a ding against our conservation efforts, or how do we report that there's been a change of actual use?
We don't report that because it's not segregated out. And when a customer has a water meter, everything goes through the meter, whether they're using it in their home or in their garden. And so the state's just asking for what we supplied in total. And we enter in our total supplied, whether they're residential, multifamily, CII, the whole list. We provide that entire bulk number to them. We don't separate it out based on if it's inside or outside.
And if they took out their lawn and planted veggies, it might be about the same amount of water anyway.
Yeah. And
well, they're also looking at your water use in aggregate, not on an individual basis. Yeah.
It's gonna be a big fluctuation year to year, like last year versus this year.
You have big fluctuations based off of weather, number of people who live in the house, their general water use, water from one neighbor to another can vary pretty largely.
So that's something that it takes several months for us to work on. Our annual usage, we work with different departments to get all the correct data, and then we have to submit it to the state. It used to be October 1st, but I believe now it's been extended to December 31st for that report. We do our auditing in July and August and get it submitted by September. And then are there any questions?
I was wondering, how are you going to publicize some of the programs that are new, in particular, like the raw water storage tank, rebate?
We'll work with Susan on doing press releases. She has the ability to do email blasts, and I believe she has it based on when someone goes to our website, they can choose what they're interested in. And Susan has said that she would be able to, do email blasts. We'll post them on our website. And then, start there, and then as it grows, we go to events, have flyers at events for customers as well.
Social media posts.
As well.
One thing I know that PCWA does is, there's a company called Sierra Pipe in Auburn, and they have posted on the door of Sierra Pipe, their rebate program. So I was thinking like Hills Flat, and some of the other locations where people are buying, like the raw water storage tanks, maybe where they buy toilets, so that it's right there, if they're seeing it as they buy it.
During the drought, we did something similar to that. We went into all the local hardware stores, BNC, Hills Flat, A to Z, Weiss Brothers, and we had drought-tolerant flyers for them, for drought-tolerant plants and what our restrictions were currently. So that would be something that we could also look into.
Sierra Plumbing and Conet. Yeah.
Sierra Plumbing, anything.
Contractors.
And keep in mind that it is a pilot program and it's very limited this year, so we won't be doing a huge effort to publicize it because we don't want to have a lot more demand than we can respond to. So, we'll be able to manage it this year and get a feel for what it will be, and then, what we might need to increase our budget. So, I don't want to go too big on our media.
I would just say, though, that I still think that there's immediacy of seeing an opportunity, and that if I need to go to the website, if I don't know it exists, I don't know to take advantage. So it seems to me we have to push more than we might think. I mean, the fact that, like, the toilet rebate program, we only redeemed 20 in 2022 out of 100 available, it would say to me that potentially could push more. And I mean, that in a way, if you push it out more, it gives you an opportunity to see what the level of demand would be. Otherwise, we don't really know. So your point is well taken. I just think, I don't know that we'll have the take rate if we don't do more aggressive push.
Agreed. We just want to be sure that we're balancing.
Yeah.
So it's manageable.
Okay.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation, thank you very much.
I think the budget for the 12.
Would you like to step to the podium?
Sure.
Just so folks at home could hear you.
Yeah, I'm a little quiet, my voice sometimes. The budget, I think, for the toilet program was $1,000 for 10 toilets a year. Not a lot. I understand maybe people aren't applying that much, and it could be marketed better. I'm a little baffled by $10,000 budgeted for a poster contest. If I'm reading the number correctly, that would provide 10 $1,000 prizes, which seems a little out of line with the actual on-the-ground changes. Did I misread that dollar amount?
No, the dollar amount's correct. We started with a $10,000 budget for our toilet rebate program that we have reduced over the year, and it is because we didn't get the take from the toilets and we wanted to expand that into something different. When we do the poster contest, we want to really incentivize the teachers and the students to want to put an effort into this project, and supplying paper and pens and crayons and all the supplies needed, as well as the reward for the students to want to. I mean, you have to have some sort of incentivization for the customer or the student to want to actually participate in a program, especially when you're getting into the high school ages. So that's where we have that budget. We may not need the whole $10,000. That's just what we have set aside for it for this year. And then moving forward, we'll look at it. If we don't use the full budget, then we can always allocate it. If we need more toilets this year, we can take money from, reallocate and work on our budget that way.
Okay, and just off the top of my head, $10, $50 prizes is $500, and another $500 would buy a lot of supplies. Where is it? I just don't see it, so that's.
We'll be reviewing it once the program's actually developed.
Yeah.
The budget is very fluid. This is not a budget that we cannot just unilaterally move around. So we'll keep an eye on it. $10,000 does seem like a lot, especially if Mr. Johansson's going to participate.
I know, he's gonna be under each, his wife and his child.
Yeah, I know Rich likes the,
And all the dogs.
contest, but that does seem a bit rich.
I actually agree, Bob, I wouldn't support $1,000 for kids.
We'll make sure it's reasonable. I can assure you my cheapskateness has not gone away.
Appreciate that.
It's hard to get a dime out of her. But also, by selling the calendars, it may become self-perpetuating.
We don't get the money for.
We don't
No,
get
they
it.
do.
They
Yep.
do. And so then they can
We
self-fund next year.
It's still a program that's in the works, so it's not set in stone in a budget. It's something that we had come up with, that we had so much money for rebates, we had so much money for student outreach, and so that's simply just an amount that we have in our budget. Doesn't mean we're gonna use that.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the whole program, make sure it's reasonable.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey, very good, and thank you, Aurora.
Thank you.
Good job.
Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this program? Yes, we will move to the general manager's report.
I am going to make it very brief President Hall. I think most probably important is to thank staff and recognize them for all of the extremely dedicated, hard work that they completed over the period of all of the storms back to back. Many of them were required to work multiple hours overtime, take time away from their families, and work out in conditions I know none of us would care to work in. So I greatly appreciate them. They are dedicated to this community, and we're very lucky to have them. And now we'll get to the part that I think everybody wants to talk about. Chip, do you want to talk about water supply? No. And also, we have formally requested Chip to stop doing his rain dance.
I've been threatened with broken legs.
Yeah. We are ready for a break.
And
You're warmed up in the bullpen if we ever need it.
yeah, there you go. I would like to take that opportunity to jump on, because Steve's not here today,
Yes.
to say that operations and maintenance crews are continuing to work
Continuing.
long hours, and we're really having a hard time getting this system entirely ready before April 15th. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah.
They are still at it. There are still many canals that is just solid down trees, so, along with many other things. So anyway, appreciate that. Just wanted to let you know they're still at it. So anyway, where are we at in our water supply? We're abundant, as Ricky said earlier. We're at 81.89 inches of precipitation at Bowman Lake. It's 154% of average, so doing very, very good. Our NID snow survey as of March 1st, I think we talked about this at the last meeting, but essentially we couldn't get up there. Weather was just too bad, helicopter conditions weren't right, and so we weren't able to get up there. We did get 2 reads. Were those via snowmobile, or do you know? They did make it to those. So we are now ready for next month's snow survey, and we're also looking at the weather window, wondering if we're going to be able to make it, which is kind of unheard of for this time of year. It's a good problem, but we do have some of the electronic sensors from the state that continue to read, and these are some very, very impressive numbers. So the Northern Sierra snow water content is at 176. That's hard for me to read on this little screen. Central Sierra 221 and Southern 200, and what does that say, 80? Anyway, this one's a little bit more impressive for me to look at. So this basically shows you the percentages. The blue line is where we're at currently, and you can see the northern area is 178% of average, the central is 221, and the southern is 269. It's very impressive when you look at the southern index there, and really that was one of the areas going into this year where we knew they were really in bad shape, but boy, have they really got a boost in the arm with the snowpack this year.
Flowing to Tulare Lake.
Yeah.
Poor farmers.
And depending on who you ask, hopefully it'll go in the ground. It might not. So NID reservoir storage, we've talked about this in previous meetings. We really don't have much more room to fill our reservoirs. It's kind of one of those deals where we are very flush in precipitation and runoff right now, but we really have nowhere to put it. So our reservoirs are darn near maxed. I think the only one that's not at that situation is Bowman, but it will get there, especially with the snowpack that is sitting up on the mountain.
Jackson Meadow?
Yes. Yeah. So again, really good shape. And then I threw this update in here this morning, actually. These reservoirs across the state are changing very rapidly with the storms we're getting, and I'm impressed that this is the first time I've looked at this in a while, and almost every reservoir on here, the number on the right is at 100% or better. So we have gotten to average or better on almost all reservoirs. Trinity is still lagging.
Shasta one's a big one.
Yes, and we'll just jump right into that, and there you go. It is rather impressive how fast that has responded, and this is without the snowpack running off yet. So it's definitely going to surpass average and be in really good shape. Again, Trinity is just a slow performer. I again, fingers crossed that, it's just snow melt and it hasn't occurred yet. Part of this too, though, is that section of California didn't get as much rain as most of the other state, but still, there's more to come on this reservoir. Folsom Lake continues to manage for flood control. They have too much water. And Oroville, same thing. We haven't seen that in a long time. It came all the way up. They had to respond, open the floodgates, and here we are. And Buller's Bar, same thing. They're just trotting along that red line, which is their flood control mandates. The drought monitor for California is much improved. Basically, Nevada County is completely out of the drought conditions. But statewide, the regulations remain. In fact, today, started yesterday, the State Water Resources Control Board was meeting. We tried to listen in to see if there was any updates, and I don't think they're ready to relinquish any drought regulation just yet. So I'm hopeful they will, but again, they continue to hang their hat on the fact that the groundwater table may not have fully replenished itself yet, which is kind of a funny concern for us. We don't really have a groundwater table, so we don't have the same situation, but again, we're a player in the statewide effort, so we try to tread along, and we always encourage conservation. So we'll see where it heads from here. The U.S. seasonal drought outlook has also basically dropped the drought designation throughout much of the middle of the state, and in fact, the northern part of the state is now drought removal likely. Really, it's only the very, very north portion and the very, very south portion that says drought persists. So, man, what an improvement, right? Seasonal temperature outlook is 50-50. Seasonal precip, let's see, this is old. So seasonal precipitation outlook shows 50-50. However, I thought I had the slide in here. The next 6 to 10 days shows California very green. So we're going to continue to be wet. If any of you have looked at the 10-day forecast, you can see that. All next week is very wet again. And even this week, the storms are rather cold, which is good. The snowpack's not melting yet. We actually got a few more inches of snow up at the head of the Cascade Canal, so this morning. So it just continues on. And then the treated water usage comparison. So February was a little bit wet, certainly wetter than years past, and that is reflected in the water use. I would imagine when we get March's totals in here, it will also be very low. It looks like awesome conservation, and it is, but it also is driven by weather. So 20%, and we'll take it. Questions? Right. Thank you.
And that is all we had.
Okay, so we have, more updates. Would you like to start, Chris?
I have no update except for our shade day next week, yes.
I attended on Monday the Lincoln Rural MAC and gave a brief version of that update that we just received, and everyone's pretty excited, so good stuff.
Good.
Well, I actually have a lot to report. So for everybody, Nevada City submitted a grant with NID's help. It was both mapping and letter of support and so on, and they actually got their grant approved for 400 acres of fuels treatment in the Deer Creek Canyon. And it was $111,000, and with more to come. So yay, and I think a letter's on its way from Nevada City Council and all the folks who worked on it to thank us. They really felt like the work that we did, and the mapping especially, made it, really possible. So they felt like we were instrumental in that. Let's see, the other thing, a couple other things is, I did do my presentation before the Board of Realtors about NID and how real estate professionals can more better represent NID. It was really well received. It was supposed to be an hour and a half presentation. It ended up being 2 hours by the time I got through it and all the questions, and people were really happy. And thank you, Greg. Greg was there to hold my hand and answer a lot of questions too. It was great. So really well attended too. There were 45 people there that actually paid money to come. How about that? Let's see. Okay, and lastly, so the LAFCO meeting this year, or this last week, was very interesting in two ways. One is that we, as LAFCO commissioners, will be reviewing the upcoming parcel annex, NID's island parcel annex for the Auburn area. And they said NID was going to make a presentation. I don't know if that's important.
Was that what she said?
Yeah, that's what SR said.
We'll be there.
I thought so. So, anyway, that was very interesting to hear. And then the most, probably everybody knows about this, but we looked in depth a bit at the Rough and Ready, fire department dissolution. And apparently LAFCO, this was kind of terrifying for me really, is that our LAFCO, and Rich is part of it, will be the body that, acts on their dissolution for the whole fire department. And then makes recommendations on how that territory will be then split up by either Penn Valley and Grass Valley and so on. So it's a very, very big deal, and the community is very sensitive to it. The folks who live in Rough and Ready want to maintain and keep the fire department. I don't think that's going to happen based on the information I heard.
They already voted to.
I know, they voted the other day to dissolve. Anyhow, that is upcoming, and it doesn't affect us at NID so much, but it is really an issue that is huge for this community. So yeah, I've been busy, and I've got, let's see, I'm going to Cascade Shores, to the Shores for their homeowners thing with another NID presentation. I think there's one more hanging out there, so I'll be talking to you. And Cascade Shores want to know all about the Scotts Flat Dam repairs. So we'll be putting together some, right, the spillway. We'll be putting together some more slides. Great, we'll have a bunch of meetings, I think. Thank you.
That's the hat.
That's it.
So I've been communicating with Matthew Shapiro, who is a direct descendant from Bert and Kate Church.
Oh, fun.
And so Greg gets some books to send to him. He's a farm advisor down in Ventura, Santa Barbara. Ran into Caleb Dardick, he was at the LAFCO meeting. Bob's on LAFCO also. And he just had nothing but praise for NID. Yeah, I had a neighbor, 84 years old, root fell over, a big tree fell over, the root ball just tore up, NID's box, everything. By the end of the day, he said there must have been 6 trucks there, and everybody got it fixed, got her taken care of, and it just met the world tour. And he was highly impressed. Again, work that Chip and Aurora and her team did with Oak Canyon, that it looks like it's going forward with a complete resolution. They have a great game plan, and that's something that we helped a private 30-member conduit, and they've been having years of problems, and it looks like it's going to be solved this year.
I'll be interested to know about that, because that's part of our presentations around those private conduit accounts.
Yeah. Yep. And then Smartsville, been talking to them, the fire department, and meet with Chip. They know what they want, and they already have the infrastructure in place. So they just need to make a direct contact with you guys. So we'll go from there. And then you talk about tomorrow.
Yep. Tomorrow Rich and I are going to provide an update to the Nevada County Contractors Association Board. And then next week, Chris and I are doing the Nevada County and Placer County Farm Bureaus. And then the next week, Trevor and I are going to meet with the Placer County Realtors, and thanks to Ricky and Greg for doing, and Chip for doing all the work on that presentation. And I did do the Lake of the Pines Homeowners Association last week, did a presentation for them, and we had about 80 people there. So it was a good turnout and a good discussion.
Nice.
So now we move to our closed item session.
We are all busy.
Do we have any public comment for items to be considered in closed session?
We did already, President Hull, hear from Ms. Gray at the outset of our meeting, and I also wanted to just advise the public that I do expect action will be taken, and we'll read that out when we come out of closed session.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right.
With that, have a great day, everyone, and we'll sign off. I'm closing. closing the closed session, and I'm opening the open session. And our legal counsel is going to read out the determination.
Thank you, President Hull. It's 12:09 PM. A motion was made in closed session that I will read out. The motion was made by Director Beerwagon, seconded by Director Calder, and carried on a vote of 4 ayes with 1 no. Director Heck was that 1 no, to deny the claim of Wet Hill Road, Nevada County.
Going to close
Adjourned.
the open session.
Good night.